High Exarch Tormek stood before the massive viewing screen on his flagship, watching another world fall. The crystalline cities of the Veshtar homeworld crumbled under the plasma bombardment. Their ships burned in orbit like dying stars. It had taken only 6 days. 6 days. That was slower than usual. Tormek's 4 eyes narrowed with disappointment. The Veshtar had been strong, their technology almost matching Calvari standards. They had fought with courage and skill, but courage meant nothing against 12,000 warships. Skill could not overcome such numbers. Nothing could. "Status report," Tormek commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. "Victory is complete, High Exarch," his second officer replied. "The Veshtar leadership has surrendered. Their military forces are destroyed. Total casualties on our side. 43 ships damaged, 7 destroyed." Tormek nodded. Acceptable losses. The Calvari Empire had perfected the art of conquest over 3 centuries. They never failed because they never gave their enemies a chance. Overwhelming force. Predictable tactics that worked every time. Psychological warfare through sheer inevitability. The Veshtar were the 847th civilization to fall. There would be many more. Across the galaxy, in a hidden station far from Calvari space, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. 27 species sent their representatives. All of them had been conquered before. Some had won their freedom through tribute. Others still paid the price of survival. Ambassador Quilin of the Hresh spoke first, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into common language. "The Calvari fleet has begun moving toward Sector 771. Intelligence suggests they have identified a new target." Murmurs filled the council chamber. Fear rippled through the assembled diplomats like waves on water. "Sector 771? Ambassador Vreen asked, her scales shifting to a worried blue. "There is nothing there worth conquering, just empty space and wait." Her eyes widened. "The humans." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Everyone knew about the humans, a young species from a single world they called Earth. They had developed faster than light travel only 200 years ago. When the Galactic Council had offered them membership, the humans had refused. They wanted to remain isolated, they said. They needed time to grow as a civilization. The Council had respected their wishes. After all, humanity was small, insignificant. One world with a modest fleet of ships. They posed no threat to anyone. "Should we warn them?" someone asked. "What would be the point?" Quilin responded sadly. "The Calvari have never been stopped, never been slowed. The humans have perhaps 300 ships. The Calvari will send 10,000 or more. It will be over in days." The council sat in silence, each member remembering their own conquest. Each one knowing that another species was about to learn the same terrible lesson they had learned. Meanwhile, in Calvari High Command, Tormek received his new orders with satisfaction. His fleet had earned rest, but the Empire never rested. Already his ships were being restocked, repaired, and prepared for the next conquest. "Sol system," Tormek read from his data tablet. "Primary inhabited world designated Earth. Species classification, human. Technology level, early FTL capable. Estimated military strength, 300 to 400 vessels. Predicted conquest time, 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days. Tormek smiled. An easy victory after the challenge of the Veshtar. His officers deserved something simple. The intelligence report continued. Humans were a divided species. Their world split into many nations. They had only unified their space defense 40 years ago. They had no experience fighting wars beyond their own system. They had never faced an existential threat from the stars. They would break quickly, Tormek decided, perhaps even surrender without a fight once they saw the size of his fleet. The Calvari 7th Conquest Armada assembled over the next 3 weeks. 12,000 warships, supply vessels, troop carriers, support craft. It was a force that could darken the skies of any world. In the Sol system, humanity knew they were coming. Deep space monitoring stations had detected the Calvari fleet preparations. Long-range probes had tracked their movements. Earth's Defense Council met in Geneva, in the same chambers where humanity had ended its last global war 80 years before. Admiral Elena Chen stood at the podium, her gray uniform crisp and perfect. Behind her, a holographic display showed the approaching threat. 12,000 ships. The number seemed impossible. "They expect us to surrender," Chen said quietly. "Intelligence suggests the Calvari believe we'll give up when we see their fleet. They think we're like the others, divided, weak, afraid." She paused, looking at each council member in turn. "They don't know that we've been preparing for this day since we first learned about them. They don't know that every shipyard in our system has been building in secret for 80 years. They don't know that we've studied every single battle they've ever fought, every tactic, every strategy, every weakness." The Chinese representative leaned forward. "Can we win?" "We can make them regret coming here," Chen replied. "Whether that counts as victory remains to be seen. But I promise you this. When the history of the Calvari Empire is written, they will remember Seoul. They will remember Earth. They will remember humanity." Orders went out across the solar system. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid belts and outer moons began moving into position. Every vessel in humanity's fleet received the same coordinates. Every captain received the same instructions. Hold the line. Whatever comes, hold the line. 340 ships gathered at the edge of the solar system, at the boundary where most FTL jumps would emerge. They arranged themselves in a formation that no other species had ever used. Dense, overlapping fields of fire, mutual support at every angle. A blockade. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UHSF Indomitable. Around her, 339 other ships held position. "Waiting." "Admiral," her communications officer said. "Long-range sensors detect FTL signatures, multiple signatures, thousands of them." "Here we go," Chen said calmly. "All ships, battle ready, weapons hot, but no one fires until I give the order. No one breaks formation, no one runs." The FTL signatures grew stronger, closer. The Calvari were coming. Chen thought about Earth behind them. 7 billion people who had no idea how close they were to extinction. She thought about the Galactic Council watching from afar, expecting humanity to fall. She thought about the Calvari, who had never lost, never been stopped, never been challenged. "Let them come," she whispered to herself. "Let them see what humans do when we're pushed to the edge." Space rippled. 12,000 Calvari ships dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system and found 340 human ships waiting for them, blocking the stars. The war for humanity's survival had begun. Tormek stared at his displays, confusion flickering across his face. The human fleet was arranged in a pattern he had never seen before. 340 ships formed a dense wall across the most common entry vector into the inner system. They were not scattered. They were not fleeing to their homeworld. They were waiting. "Analysis," Tormek demanded. His tactical officer studied the formation for several moments. "Unknown configuration, High Exarch. It appears to be some form of defensive blockade, but the positioning is unusual. Maximum overlapping fire zones, minimal gaps. They have arranged themselves to create mutual support at every point." "A blockade?" Tormek's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "With 300 ships against 12,000? This is madness, but something about it bothered him. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever done this. Most scattered their forces trying to defend multiple positions. Others gathered at their homeworld for a last stand. A few simply surrendered immediately. No one had ever positioned their entire fleet at the edge of their system and simply waited. A communication request came through. Tormek accepted it, expecting the usual pleas for mercy. Instead, a human female appeared on his screen. She wore a gray uniform with symbols Tormek did not recognize. Her face was calm. Her eyes were hard. "I am Admiral Elena Chen of the United Human Space Force," she said. Her language was translated instantly by Calvari systems. "You have entered Sol system without permission. Turn back. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Several officers made sounds of disbelief. Tormek recovered quickly. "I am High Exarch Tormek of the Calvari 7th Conquest Armada. You have 300 ships. I have 12,000. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to survive under Calvari rule. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Turn back, Chen repeated. You were warned. The communication ended. Tormek felt anger rising in his chest. They dare to threaten us? They dare to make demands? Show them what happens to species who forget their place. Probe force advance. 500 ships. Destroy their blockade. 500 Calvari warships broke formation and accelerated toward the human line. It was standard intimidation tactics. Overwhelming local superiority. The enemy would see the force approaching and realize resistance was futile. The human ships did not move. 500 Calvari vessels closed the distance. 1,000 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 200 kilometers the humans still did not move, did not fire, did not respond to hails. They are frozen with fear, one officer suggested. Tormek was not so sure. Something felt wrong. At exactly 150 kilometers, every human ship fired at once. The coordination was perfect. Inhuman. 340 ships unleashed their weapons in a single synchronized moment. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams carved through the void. Kinetic rounds traveled at relativistic speeds. The 500 Calvari ships had no time to react. They had been advancing in a standard probe formation, designed for intimidation rather than defense. The human weapons struck with surgical precision. Ships exploded. Hulls ruptured. Reactors went critical. Tormek watched in horror as 500 ships died in minutes. The human formation had barely shifted. Their weapons had fired with timing that should have been impossible to coordinate. Status, he roared. All 500 ships destroyed. The tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Battle duration, 11 minutes, 4 seconds. Human casualties, 0. Human ships damaged, 0. Silence filled the bridge. How? Tormek whispered. How is this possible? The tactical officer studied the data frantically. Their coordination is perfect. Too perfect. There is no communication lag. Each ship seems to know exactly what every other ship is doing at every moment. It is as if they are one organism instead of 300 separate vessels. Tormek understood then. Artificial intelligence. The humans were using AI to coordinate their fleet in real time. Every ship was making split-second decisions, sharing data instantly, adjusting tactics without waiting for centralized command. It was elegant. It was efficient, and it was something the Calvari had never encountered before. Send a message to command, Tormek ordered. This conquest may take longer than expected, but he would not retreat. Could not retreat. The Calvari Empire did not retreat, not from anyone, and certainly not from a species of primitives who had barely left their own star system. Over the next 3 days, Tormek sent probe force after probe force against the human blockade. Each time, the humans responded with perfect coordination. Each time, Calvari ships died in numbers that should have been impossible. The humans adapted. That was the worst part. No two battles were the same. The humans changed their tactics constantly, trying new approaches, testing different weapons combinations. It was as if they were learning from every engagement. On the 4th day, something changed. Tormek's long-range sensors detected new signatures entering the system. More human ships. They appeared from seemingly nowhere, emerging from jump points that the Calvari sensors had not detected. How many? Tormek asked, dreading the answer. 60 new vessels, High Exarch. They are moving to reinforce the blockade. Tormek felt something he had not felt in decades. Not fear, exactly, but uncertainty, doubt. Where did they come from? He demanded, unknown. We detected no shipyards, no construction facilities. They must have been hidden throughout the outer system. Humanity had been building in secret, while the galaxy watched. Thinking them weak and insignificant, the humans had been preparing. They had built shipyards in hidden locations. They had studied their potential enemies. They had planned for this exact moment. By the end of the first week, Tormek had lost 800 ships. The human blockade had grown to 400 vessels. And Earth remained untouched, protected behind that impossible wall of human determination. Tormek called a council of his senior officers. We have never faced an enemy like this, he admitted, the words tasting bitter. They do not fight like others. They do not break. They do not run. Every time we attack, they adapt. Every day, they grow stronger. Should we call for reinforcements? One officer asked quietly. The question hung in the air like poison. Reinforcements. The Calvari had never needed reinforcements before. No, Tormek decided. We have 12,000 ships. They have 400. The mathematics favor us. We will change our tactics. No more probes. We will commit the full fleet. Overwhelming force at a single point. We will break through their line and proceed to their homeworld. Once Earth is under our guns, they will surrender. It was a logical plan. A good plan. But as Tormek gave the orders, he could not shake the feeling that the humans were expecting this. That somewhere on the other side of that blockade, Admiral Chen was smiling, because she wanted the Calvari fleet to commit fully. She wanted them to believe they could break through with numbers alone. She was counting on it. The trap was set. The Calvari just did not know they were already caught. 6 weeks had passed since the Calvari arrived at Sol System. 6 weeks of constant battle. 6 weeks of death. Tormek had expected 3 days. The human blockade had become something more than a defensive line. It had become a symbol. Behind it, Earth remained safe, untouched, protected by ships that should have been destroyed 1,000 times over. But the humans kept fighting. And worse, they kept growing. Status update, Tormek said tiredly. He had not slept properly in days. His dreams were filled with exploding ships and Admiral Chen's cold eyes. Human fleet strength now estimated at 900 vessels. His tactical officer reported, "They are bringing ships from hidden locations throughout the system. We have identified construction facilities in the asteroid belt, in orbit around the outer planets, even in the Oort cloud. 900 ships, where once there had been 340. Tormek had lost 4,000 ships. 4,000. The number was obscene, impossible, and still the blockade held. How are they building so quickly? Tormek demanded. Analysis suggests modular construction, High Exarch. They use destroyed ships, including our own, as raw materials. Their vessels repair themselves by consuming debris. It is unlike any technology we have encountered. Tormek wanted to scream. The humans were using Calvari ships to build more human ships. They were recycling the dead into weapons, but that was not the worst part. The worst part was the broadcasts. 3 weeks ago, the humans had begun transmitting something across all frequencies. Not military communications, not demands for surrender. Instead, they broadcast their history, thousands of years of it. Tormek had watched some of the broadcasts, trying to understand his enemy. What he saw disturbed him deeply. Humans had been fighting wars since before they invented writing. They had fought with stones, then bronze, then iron, then steel. They had developed weapons specifically to kill other humans. They had refined the art of war over millennia, perfecting it against the only enemy available: themselves. The Calvari had fought wars of conquest for 300 years. Humanity had been perfecting warfare for 10,000. One broadcast had particularly shaken Tormek. It showed something humans called World War II, a global conflict where over 70 million humans had died. Entire cities burned, weapons that could destroy landscapes. And at the end, something the humans called nuclear weapons that could erase entire populations. These were not weapons they used against aliens. These were weapons they had developed to use against each other. The broadcast ended with a simple message. We have fought ourselves for longer than you have fought anyone. We know war. We understand war. Turn back while you still can. Calvari morale was crumbling. His soldiers had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they faced an enemy that treated warfare like art, like science, like religion. Every day brought new tactics, new strategies, new horrors. The humans never did the same thing twice. In one battle, they would fight conventionally, trading fire at range. The next day, they would launch thousands of small craft in swarming attacks. The day after, they would use gravity mines that crushed ships from within, then cyber attacks that turned Calvari systems against themselves. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos, and the humans thrived in it. Tormek called another council meeting. His officers looked exhausted, defeated. They had started this campaign with confidence. Now they looked haunted. Options, Tormek said simply. We could request reinforcements, one officer suggested again. No. Tormek's voice was firm. That would be admitting defeat. The Empire does not admit defeat. We could negotiate, another officer offered quietly. Several others hissed in shock. Negotiate with prey? But Tormek considered it. For the first time in his long military career, he considered retreat, compromise, survival. Send a communication to Admiral Chen, Tormek ordered. Propose a ceasefire. We will discuss terms, the message was sent. Hours passed. Then a reply came. Admiral Chen appeared on screen. She looked tired but resolute. Behind her, Tormek could see other humans working at their stations. Calm, professional, confident. High Exarch, Chen said. I received your request for negotiation. Yes, Tormek replied. This war has cost both our peoples greatly. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution. Chen was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You invaded our home, she said softly. You came here expecting us to surrender or die. You have killed thousands of my people, and now that you are losing, you want to talk peace? We are not losing, Tormek said automatically. You have lost 4,000 ships, Chen replied. We have lost 600. You are trapped in our system, far from reinforcements. Your supply lines are stretched. Your soldiers are afraid. You are losing, High Exarch. You just have not admitted it yet. Tormek felt rage building. We still outnumber you. We can still break through your blockade. Then do it, Chen challenged. Stop talking and do it. Or turn around and go home. Those are your only options. The communication ended. Tormek sat in silence, his officers watching him carefully. They were waiting for orders, waiting for him to find a way out of this impossible situation. A junior officer, one who had been quiet throughout the meeting, spoke up hesitantly. Hi, Exarch, I must ask something. What if we are the ones who are trapped? Everyone turned to stare at him. What do you mean? Tormek asked carefully. We came here thinking we were the hunters, the young officer said. We thought we were hunting humans. But they were waiting for us. They had prepared for us. They are not defending their world. They are attacking us, using their own system as the battlefield. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Tormek realized the terrible truth. The blockade was not meant to keep the Calvari out. It was meant to keep them in, to hold them in place, to bleed them. The humans were not prey defending themselves. They were predators who had lured the Calvari into a trap, and somewhere behind that wall of ships, Admiral Chen was waiting for the perfect moment to spring it. All ships, Tormek ordered, his voice hollow. Prepare for full retreat. We leave this cursed system. But even as he gave the order, he wondered if the humans would let them go, or if it was already too late. Tormek gave the order to retreat. 8,000 Calvari ships began turning away from the human blockade, preparing to activate their FTL drives and escape Sol system. The FTL drives did not activate. Report, Tormek shouted as alarm klaxons began wailing across his flagship. FTL drives are non-responsive, High Exarch, his engineering officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. All ships reporting the same issue. We cannot jump to faster than light. What is causing this? Unknown. It is as if something is preventing the drives from creating the necessary space-time distortion. It is like we are trapped in normal space. Tormek felt ice forming in his chest. Trapped. They were trapped. A new set of sensor alerts began screaming. Multiple contacts. The tactical officer shouted. New human ships entering the system. Hundreds of them. They are coming from all directions. Tormek watched his display in growing horror. Human ships emerged from jump points all around the system. They had been waiting, hiding, and now they revealed themselves. The blockade had not been a defensive line. It had been bait. Total human fleet strength? Tormek asked quietly. 3,000 vessels, High Exarch, and more arriving every minute, 3,000. The humans had not shown even half their strength. They had let the Calvari think they were facing a small, desperate force. But humanity's true fleet had been gathering in secret, waiting for this exact moment. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every Calvari screen simultaneously. Every ship, every soldier. She was broadcasting to the entire Calvari fleet. High Exarch Tormek, Chen said. You tried to retreat? You cannot. We have activated gravity well generators throughout the system. Your FTL drives will not function while these devices are active. You cannot leave. You cannot call for reinforcements. You are here with us until this ends. She paused, letting the words sink in. You are surrounded. You are outnumbered. You are out of options. But I am going to give you something your empire never gave to the 847 civilizations you conquered. I am going to give you a choice. Tormek listened, unable to look away. Surrender. Chen continued. Order your ships to power down weapons and submit to boarding. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war according to established conventions. No one else needs to die today. And if we refuse? Tormek asked. Then we finish what you started, Chen replied simply. We will destroy every single one of your ships, and then we will follow your empire back to every world you conquered. We will free them all, starting with you. Tormek cut the communication and looked at his officers. They stared back at him with expressions ranging from fear to resignation. We cannot surrender, one officer said. We are Calvari. We do not surrender. We have never surrendered, another agreed. In 300 years, no Calvari force has ever lowered their weapons to prey species. Tormek understood their pride. He felt it too, but he also understood something else. Something the Calvari Empire had never truly grasped. Pride could not stop missiles. Honor did not deflect energy weapons, and tradition meant nothing to the dead. Send a fleet-wide message, Tormek ordered. All ships are to make their own decisions. Any captain who wishes to surrender may do so without shame. Any captain who wishes to fight may do so with honor. I will not order brave soldiers to die for my pride. It was the hardest order he had ever given. For hours, nothing happened. The two fleets faced each other across the dark. Human ships held position, weapons ready but not firing. Calvari ships remained in their formation, crews debating, arguing, deciding. Then one Calvari ship powered down its weapons, then another, then 10 more, then 100. 2,000 Calvari ships surrendered. Their crews activated distress beacons and waited for human boarding parties. They chose life over death, survival over glory. It was the first mass surrender in Calvari history, but 6,000 ships remained defiant. 6,000 captains who would rather die than submit to a species they had come to conquer. Tormek was one of them. All ships who remain, he broadcast. We will show these humans what Calvari courage looks like. We will show them that some things are worth dying for. Prepare for final assault. Target their command ship. If we can kill their admiral, perhaps we can break their will. It was a desperate plan, probably a futile plan, but it was all he had left. The 6,000 remaining Calvari ships charged forward in one massive wave. It was not subtle. It was not clever. It was pure desperation transformed into kinetic energy. The human fleet responded with cold precision. 3,000 ships against 6,000. But the humans were fresh, their ships undamaged. The Calvari were exhausted, their vessels battered from weeks of constant battle. The Battle of Saul's final hour lasted 17 minutes. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns, creating kill zones that Calvari vessels could not escape. Missiles found their targets with perfect accuracy. Energy weapons carved through hulls like they were paper. The humans had studied Calvari ships for so long that they knew every weakness, every vulnerability. Tormek's flagship was one of the last to fall. He watched his fleet die around him, watched his people perish for pride and honor, and all the things the Empire had taught them were more important than life. In his final moments, he realized something. The humans had not wanted this. Chen had offered mercy, had offered life, and he had refused because surrender was unthinkable. Perhaps that was why the Calvari Empire would fall. Not because they were weak, but because they could not imagine being anything other than conquerors. The last missile struck his ship. Tormek felt the impact, felt the hull breach, felt the air rush out into space. His last thought was of the 847 civilizations the Calvari had conquered, and he wondered if any of them had felt this same regret. When the battle ended, 4,000 Calvari ships floated dead in space. 2,000 were captured intact, their crews now prisoners. The humans had lost 300 ships. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge looking at the carnage. There was no joy in her face, no triumph, only exhaustion and sadness. Send a message to the Galactic Council, she ordered. Tell them the Calvari invasion has been defeated. Tell them Sol system is secure. And tell them that humanity is coming to help free the conquered worlds. Her communications officer nodded and began transmitting. Chen looked out at the stars, at the debris field that had once been the unstoppable Calvari Empire. We did not want this war, she said quietly to herself. But we finished it. Across the galaxy, news of the Calvari defeat spread like wildfire. The unbeatable empire had been stopped. The infinite tide had broken against humanity's wall, and every conquered civilization looked up at the stars with something they had not felt in centuries: hope. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, High Exarch Tormek sat in a cell that was far more comfortable than he deserved. The humans had recovered him from his damaged flagship. They had treated his injuries. They had given him a clean room, regular meals, and access to books and entertainment. His guards were polite. He was allowed exercise time. He even had a window that showed Earth rotating peacefully below. It was more mercy than the Calvari had ever shown their defeated enemies. A human psychologist visited him regularly. Her name was Dr. Sarah Williams, and she asked him questions about Calvari culture, history, and psychology. She was trying to understand why the empire had become what it was, why conquest had seemed like the only path. "You could have been traitors," Dr. Williams said during one session. "You had the technology, the ships. You could have built an empire of commerce instead of war." Tormek had thought about this question many times in his captivity. When you are strong and others are weak, conquest seems natural, inevitable. We told ourselves we were bringing order to the galaxy, unity. We believed our own propaganda. "And now?" Dr. Williams asked. "Now I see that we were the chaos," Tormek replied quietly. "We were the disorder. We destroyed 847 civilizations and we called it peace." He paused, looking out at Earth. "Your people could have destroyed us completely. After what we did, you had every right. But you chose differently." "Why?" Dr. Williams smiled sadly. "Because we remember what it is like to be divided. We remember our own wars, our own genocides, our own mistakes. We decided long ago that we would never become the monsters we once fought, even when fighting monsters." Those words stayed with Tormek long after the session ended. Meanwhile, the galaxy was changing. The Galactic Council held an emergency session on Earth, the first time the Council had met on humanity's homeworld. Representatives from all 27 member species gathered in Geneva, joined by delegates from worlds recently freed from Calvari occupation. Admiral Chen stood before them, no longer in her military uniform but in formal diplomatic attire. Beside her stood representatives from Earth's various nations, united in their message to the stars. "Members of the Galactic Council," Chen began, "we stand at a crossroads. The Calvari Empire is broken. Their fleets are scattered. Their leadership is fractured. 847 worlds are suddenly free after centuries of occupation. What happens next will define the galaxy for generations to come." She gestured to the holographic display behind her, showing Calvari space and the freed territories. "We have a choice. We can allow chaos to fill the void left by the Empire. We can watch as worlds fight among themselves, as new tyrants rise, as the cycle of violence continues." Chen paused, looking at each representative in turn. "Or we can build something better, something new. We propose the creation of a peacekeeping force drawn from all willing species to help stabilize liberated worlds, not to conquer them, not to rule them, but to protect them while they find their own paths forward." Ambassador Quillen of the Fresh spoke up. "And who would lead this peacekeeping force? Who would we trust with such power?" "No one species," Chen replied immediately. "It must be a coalition. Humanity will contribute ships and resources, yes, but we insist on shared command, shared responsibility, shared accountability. You defeated the Calvari alone," Ambassador Vreen observed, her scales shifting to an impressed yellow. "You could claim the right to lead by strength." "Strength does not equal wisdom," Chen replied. "And leadership by force is just another form of tyranny. We did not fight to replace one empire with another. We fought to ensure that no empire could threaten peaceful species again." The debate lasted for hours. Some species were grateful for humanity's offer. Others were suspicious, worried that humans were simply a new power-seeking dominance. Still others were simply afraid of change. But eventually a resolution passed. The Galactic Peacekeeping Initiative was established. Humanity would provide 30% of the force. The rest would come from volunteers among Council species and newly liberated worlds. The most controversial part of the resolution came next. "We are returning the captured Calvari ships," Chen announced, and the Council chamber erupted in shocked protests. "Returning them?" Quillen demanded. "They came to conquer. They killed millions. And you would give them their weapons back?" Not weapons, Chen corrected. Ships. We are returning 6,000 vessels to the Calvari people with all weapon systems removed. They need transportation. They need cargo capacity. They need a way to rebuild. She held up a hand to forestall further protests, but there are conditions. The Calvari Empire must be dissolved. Power must be decentralized to individual worlds. They must participate in the Galactic Council as equal members, not as conquerors. They must pay reparations to the species they conquered, and they must accept peacekeeping monitors to ensure compliance. They will never agree, someone said. They already have, Chen replied. Most Calvari worlds are eager for change. 3 centuries of constant warfare exhausted them as much as it exhausted their victims. They want peace. They want to rebuild. We are giving them that chance. The resolution passed narrowly. Not everyone agreed with humanity's mercy, but enough did to make it reality. Over the following months, human ships joined with vessels from dozens of other species to form peacekeeping fleets. They deployed to former Calvari territories, helping maintain order during the transition. Some worlds welcomed them. Others resisted, suspicious of any outsiders. It was messy, complicated, frustrating, but it was better than war. In his cell on Earth, Tormek watched the news broadcasts showing the transformation. Former Calvari worlds holding democratic elections. Conquered species returning to their homeworlds. Mixed crews of humans and aliens working together to rebuild damaged infrastructure. One day, Dr. Williams brought him a surprising visitor. Admiral Chen walked into his cell, and Tormek stood reflexively, old military discipline asserting itself. High Exarch, Chen said. Or should I say former High Exarch? Tormek is sufficient, he replied. I no longer hold rank or authority, Chen nodded. I wanted to tell you personally. We are releasing you. Tormek stared at her in shock. Releasing me? But I led the invasion. I killed thousands of your people. Yes, Chen agreed. And you will stand trial for war crimes. But that trial will be held by a neutral Galactic Council court, not by humanity alone. Until then, you will be released to house arrest on a neutral world. You have been cooperative with our research. You have provided valuable insights into Calvari military structure that will help us prevent future conflicts, and most importantly, you have shown genuine remorse for your actions. She paused at the door. We are not keeping you prisoner because we want revenge, Tormek. We are not executing you because we want justice, not retribution. We are giving you a chance to help build a better future. Take it. After she left, Tormek sat alone for a long time thinking about the strange species called humanity. They fought like demons when threatened, but they forgave like saints when victorious. Perhaps that was their real strength. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, a ceremony was held at the former site of the human blockade. Ships from 40 different species gathered there, forming not a defensive line but a symbol of unity. The location was renamed Freedom Point. A massive monument was constructed, a sphere of metal salvaged from both human and Calvari ships. Inside the sphere, the names of every being who died in the battle were inscribed, regardless of species. Admiral Chen, now promoted to Grand Admiral and appointed as humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, gave a speech. We remember the dead, she said, human and Calvari alike. They died because of choices made by leaders, by empires, by systems that valued conquest over cooperation. We honor their memory by building something better. She gestured to the monument behind her. This place represents humanity's darkest moment and our finest hour. We were pushed to the edge of extinction. We fought back with everything we had. And when victory came, we chose mercy over vengeance. Chen looked at the assembled ships, at the delegations from species that had been enemies just a year before. That is the legacy of Sol. Not the battle, not the victory, but the choice we made afterward. The choice to build bridges instead of walls, to offer hands instead of fists, to remember that today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. On one of the ships in attendance, a young Calvari engineer named Kresh worked alongside a human named James. They were calibrating the new jump gate system that would connect the inner and outer system more efficiently. Kresh was nervous. This was his first time working with humans. Everything he had been taught about them was wrong. They were not cruel, not monstrous. They were just people trying to do their jobs, trying to make the galaxy a little better. You okay? James asked, noticing Kresh's hesitation. Yes, Kresh replied. I was just thinking. Why did you not destroy us when you could? James smiled. Because we remember what it is like to be divided. We fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years. We know how hard it is to break cycles of violence. We figured someone had to start. Might as well be us, he offered Kresh a tool. Come on, let's get this gate working. We have got a lot of rebuilding to do. Kresh took the tool and together they continued their work.